For this next segment, what I've done is I've created a template using one of my pre-built templates. I've dropped in some media, and I've deliberately left some gaps on the timeline because sometimes I like to assemble a rough project, but I'm not sure where my handles or where my in or out points are going to be. So I've built the project so that I've got some blank areas. There's quite a few problems with this project as I've brought it up as a template, and you're going to see how we can quickly correct these problems using Production Assistant. So the first thing that we want to do as we look at our project here, let's zoom in on the project so you can see the whole thing on the timeline here. Here's some gaps. We can see we've got some stereo audio and some mono audio. There's clearly some things going on with the audio here. So let's get set to use some of the different speed tools that are found in Production Assistant. Now, first of all, we need to go to Source Media and be sure we check Current Project as Source. I can't tell you how important enough this is. You need to be sure that you're always telling Production Assistant that your timeline is the source, unless you're processing something outside of the timeline. Otherwise, Production Assistant is going to see blank information if there's nothing in that particular source file or in that source bin. So use Current Project as Source. Now we don't need to go to the Processing tab or the Target Output tab. These aren't necessary for what we're going to be doing next. Let's come up to our toolbar up here, and you can see we've got all the different options, and I've also placed those same options up here on my main toolbar. So the first thing that I want to do is let's see what's going on with this dialogue. It's very, very quiet. So this was recorded way too quietly. So let's come up here and we're going to choose Normalize Track. Now I already have the dialogue track selected down here, so let's just simply hit Normalize Track. Boom, all of our audio has now been normalized across that track. Great, but one of the problems that we have here is we have two separate channels of audio, and we can see that one was recorded properly and one was not. So let's split these out so that we have two mono tracks instead of dealing with a single stereo track. So we're going to come up here and use our channel split, and we can do this either on the toolbar where I've put my tools or the shortcuts up, or we can do it directly here inside of Production Assistant. So let's click on Channel Split in Production Assistant. We now have two dialogue channels. You notice it's now labeled Channel 1 Dialogue, Channel 2 Dialogue.
When Sean returned home from Iraq, it went right to Walter Reed to begin his rehabilitation.
And we don't need Channel 1 dialogue here. The dialogue was actually properly recorded on Channel 2.
When Sean returned home from Iraq, it went right to Walter Reed to begin his rehabilitation for injuries that were both physical and psychological. Well, the doctors there wanted him to get out and get into sports. I mean, after all, Sean was a pretty good athlete back in high school. But golf? It's a sport that Sean had never played, and quite honestly, never had any interest in.
Great, now we're set up so that we've got our audio on split tracks. Now let's come down here to where there's an interview, and we'll have the interviewer on one channel.
Did you always know you wanted to be a soldier, that you wanted to? Ever since I was 4 years old.
Now we have a separate track for the other part of the interview. So you can see quickly how this is a big benefit, splitting those two tracks off and giving you separate control and even separate right-left pan control if you need it of the two different dialogues. Now, for broadcasters, this does default so that all the Channel 1 audio goes to right and all the Channel 2 audio goes to left. That sets it up perfectly so that your NAT audio is on one channel and your dialogue audio is on another. You can change this very easily just simply by moving the pan control to center or double-clicking the pan control at the track header. Let's look. So if we've got our dialogue panned all the way to one side and to the other as it comes out of the Production Assistant tool, all we need to do is double click that handle, and that automatically puts everything to center. So if you don't want to send this audio off to two separate channels, as you probably do when you're archiving this media, and you want everything to be mixed to center or close to center, just simply double click or move these off to the side. That's all there is to it.
Did you always know you wanted to be a soldier, that you wanted to?
Now clearly we've got some other audio issues going on here, and we'll deal with those in just a moment. Let's go up and look at some other pieces of what's happening in our timeline here. Now we've got all these gaps. It might be that I want to go in and readjust some of the handles. So let's zoom in a little bit. I'm just using my scroll wheel here. I want that shot to come in just a little bit more tight, and I want this to end just a little bit sooner. I think I want to get rid of that little bit of dialogue right there. Good. Let's look at our next shot. And I think I want to edit that just by using a slip edit. So I've got a slightly different shot there. Let's get his swing and the camera pull back. There we go. So let's look at that shot. Great. That's what I want there. Now let's go and slide down, look at our next shot. Right here. And I definitely don't want it so that I've got that exposure change. So let's set it up so that exposure change is gone. And we'll just slide edit that one as well so that we make sure we've avoided that exchange. We'll get his foot as he steps out of the vehicle there. Got that?
All night. I didn't get home till a little after midnight.
I like that shot right where it is.
Jim told me it was around 1,300 a day.
So let's cut off that tiny bit of dialogue at the very end of that piece.
Jim told me it was around 1,300 a day.
Did you always know?
Great, we've got that. Let's look at this next shot. I think that's fine just like it is.
Sitting down over there like a bench.
Great, and then our final shot.
Spot again. I'll get you to put it right back down in there again. All right.
And there we go. All right, so we've tightened all those shots up to get them to be exactly what we want them to be. So the next thing that we're going to do is just going to select this area here and go up here and choose our Remove Track Gaps. So let's click on Remove Track Gaps, and you'll notice everything in that track is now rippled down, so it's a nice tight edit.
Never had any interest in.
Okay, so now we've taken all these sections and we've cleaned them up. Let's continue to move on and look at some of the other things that we want to do. So to create an area that's got some emotional content to it, let's draw a selection here. This is where we want to have our crossfades take place. We'll select the track that we want to have the crossfades in. We're going to come up here to our crossfade tool, our Create Crossfades tool. And again, I'm using it inside of Production Assistant, but we do have it up on our toolbar if we want to access it there. Choose Create Crossfades. Now we have some different options here. We can simply move the events, and that'll ripple to remove timeline gaps, or we can extend events, and we can choose it to leave it as a cut if there's not enough media, or we can extend it for available media. We can move events as required or extend anyway for looping media. I recommend that you work with leave it as a cut or simply move the events. If you set it up so that it loops the media, what it's going to do is when it reaches the end of the video file, it's going to go all the way back to the endpoint of where the file was originally recorded. Now that might mean that the viewer will see the same piece of media twice, or it might mean that it's going to go to a place that took place before your endpoint on the media. So it's not an option you'll choose very often, but it's one that we've left there for you to use in case that seems to be the most practical way of using the tool. But I recommend that you leave things as cuts only or you move events. So we're going to set this up to extend for available media because in some cases here we've got some short media. We'll choose OK. And there goes our crossfades.
All night. I didn't get home till a little after midnight. Jim told me it was around.
Now let's undo that real quickly by hitting Control-Z and undo those crossfades. And we're going to draw that selection again, only this time we're going to use the tool a different way. So let's again choose Create Crossfades, but this time we're going to move the events. We're going to tell it to ripple to remove timeline gaps. That means that we're going to institute or insert a gap right here in our media. Choose OK. And we've got all of our crossfades set up there, and we can see those have taken place.
All night. I didn't get home till a little after midnight. Jim told me it was around.
And now we've got this gap right here. Now we can remove that gap simply by moving everything down and leaving ripple enabled if we'd like, or we could use our ripple remover, or rather our gap remover here, or we can extend the media just depending on how we want to work with this. So we have created that gap in there. Sometimes I like actually having the gap in because it lets me know how much time I've modified in my file. And it might be that my package needs to begin at a point and end at a point, and by rippling that way, it's let me insert a gap that might let me put another piece of B-roll in there. But it does let me know exactly how much time I've changed in my timeline by using the gap format. So there's a couple of different ways that you can create those crossfades and have them work best for you. Let's go back, we're going to undo it, and we're going to recreate the crossfades using the extendable media format. We'll hit Control Z. That puts everything back to where it was. And one more time, we're going to run our crossfade tool. This time we're going to extend the events, and we're going to extend for available media. There we go, just like that.